abundance to you, Mrs. Boss Lady. Blessings in abundance. Sharash too. Lisa. Kay, blessings in abundance to everybody. Blessings in abundance. I'm not going to be long tonight, but I have to. This is important. I have to. It's imperative. I get this message, the clarity of this message tonight. So I'm going in. Blessings in abundance. Let me go ahead and get started real quick. Blessings in abundance to everybody. Okay. So I'm going to, let's talk plain tonight. Blessings in abundance to everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Sparkle. So I'm going to talk straight tonight and plain tonight. Here's what's important. You're welcome. You're welcome. Here's what's important, right? Here's what's important. It's important that we shed the religious narrative, the religious presentation, the religious perspective. It's important that we shed that religious narrative and not sacrifice our divine inspiration, revelation, and activation. Right? This is imperative. I'm going to give it to us straight tonight. This is super important. This is super important. Blessed and abundance to everybody. It's important that we understand exactly what this story means when we talk about Jesus versus Yeshua. Right? I'm going to tell you straight up. I'm going to give it to you straight tonight. And I need you to understand this and hear me very clearly. I talk about for the last couple of weeks how without connection to our ancestry, we cannot activate as deeply and as powerfully as we should be able to. And tonight I need us to understand that the character, the depiction of Yeshua, of Jesus, right? Whether you believe it was allegory or whether you believe it's history, understand that that character, that person, that history that you're looking at is in fact you. It's us. It's us. And I'm going to break this down tonight because this is very important. I prayed and meditated. I said, listen, how can I make sure that I get this message to the Dynasty tribe, because I understand how important this is. And I'm not going to let this go by the wayside. It's important that we share the religious interpretations that have trickled down and become a false identity of who we are. It's important that we start to connect to and start to accept and receive the authenticity of the identity of who we actually are. And who we actually are is that we are a people that both biologically, psychologically, and spiritually are the most dangerous people on the planet. And I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. The most dangerous weapon, if you will, on the planet is an individual who knows who they are, especially an individual of, this is not about race. This is not about race. I'll explain that later. But especially if you are in a body of an indigenous individual, it's important that you understand that connecting to and receiving the authenticity of your actual identity is paramount in this time. It's absolutely paramount. And let me give you some pointers to help you understand exactly what I'm saying and why I'm saying what I'm saying. When they talked about Jesus in the religious sense, right? The interpretation and presentation of Jesus is about the focus of rituals, right? But when we deal with Yeshua, it's about rites. Notice that Yeshua was so powerful in his operation and what he did and how he functioned that he was able to go to the top tax collector in his community and get that tax collector to go against the government and give back all the citizens of his community back taxes that belonged to them, that was overcharged to them. That's power. That is utilizing your divine identity in order to get a practical circumstance turned around and taken care of. And that's where we are in our life right now. But what's absolutely important at this time and where it all begins and where it all starts is us understanding who we are. We have to understand the authenticity of who we are, our divine identity, and how that trickles down into our practical lives and who we are in this earth. Let me tell you again what I mean, right? So understand that when we deal with the identity of Yeshua, whether you think, again, Yeshua is an allegory, whether you think it's history, if you think it is an allegory, what this means is that you at least admit, and you have to admit based on the information that is connected to ancient Kemet, and understand that you can Google the correlation between Yeshua and Thoth. Thoth and Yeshua essentially have the same message. I'm going to break that down in a minute. Thoth and Yeshua essentially have the exact same message. And I'm going to tell you that Thoth is the first depiction of the Christ consciousness entering into the body of an indigenous person. It's not just a story about some alien coming to earth and starting to have his way. If you pay attention to the underlining story, and if you realize what's being broken down, and this is the same thing with Yeshua, if you understand what is happening through everything that Thoth is describing through the text, then you will realize that this is the Christ consciousness reconnecting or connecting with the spirit or with the soul of an indigenous body. So now let me take it to Yeshua, because this is key. Yeshua is a depiction. If you believe it's allegory, it's absolutely fine. But Yeshua is a depiction that our ancestors left for us, a blueprint for us to ascend into our highest level of a divine identity that we call Christ. Please understand, this is very, very key. This is very, very key. Our ancestors left us a blueprint on how to activate our healing modalities, a blueprint on how to activate the ability to operate in clairvoyance, audiovoyance, our abilities to heal the sick from our energy field. This is a blueprint, but understand that the religious interpretation left out your ability to ascend and to activate. And everybody knows me at this point, I don't demonize any faith, right? Because again, religion is the elementary school of spirituality. So it's not about demonizing the faith, but I got to give you the practical understanding tonight. I have to give you this divine practical understanding and help you realize that this story of Yeshua is way bigger than you understand. Let me tell you something. You tell me and think about what story has lasted for thousands of years, whether you think it's allegory or history, and I'm about to go into some deeper things in a minute. But whether you think it's allegory or history, think about this. How many stories of an individual person? We know about the pantheons with the Egyptian gods. We know about the pantheons with the ancient Kemet. But how many stories do you know have lasted for thousands of years and have lasted or have reached into the corners of the earth in different communities and in different ethnicities? We got Yeshua is Krishna, right? Imam. Yeshua is a different name in every culture. And let me tell you why. Because the depiction of Yeshua is a secret code about how to unlock us in this specific time right now. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. I'm going to go deep, right? If you believe that Yeshua was history versus allegory, do you know what this means? This means that if you are this is not about separation, because this is about righteousness, obviously, right? So this is included of all people, but understand it is my assignment to speak to the indigenous people and reawaken us and help us to understand once again who we are and how we are to operate because of the times we're in. So understand that if you realizing that Yeshua, if you believe that it's history, understand this. The religious system has taken you outside of your lineage and has you standing outside of it and looking inward and asking and begging for things instead of helping you realize that you are what you're looking at. Okay? This is the key. This is very, very key, right? You don't realize the whole religion, unfortunately, has locked us out of our power and our authentic identity, divine identity that will allow us to manifest the lives that we're destined to manifest. I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. Okay? So understand something. I went deep and I started studying on the migrations of DNA. I started studying the migrations of DNA. And the mitochondria DNA, which is what they call the Eve DNA, they tracked it all the way back to 160 to 190,000 years. Check this out. This is important. 160 to 190,000 years they went back. And these are called, stay with me, these are called haplogroups. These are called haplogroups. And these haplogroups, specifically L1, L2, and L3, are the haplogroups that were born in the cradle, what they call cradle of civilization, or the Fertile Crescent. That is Northeast Africa. Okay, now I know we'll talk in a minute, because I know that we've discovered that the indigenous people have been across the world for thousands of years. We know that, but just stay with me for a second. These haplogroups in this time have been able, these geneticists, these anthropologists, these genetic anthropologists have created and been able to trace the mitochondria DNA haplogroups back to Northeast Africa, right? And understand that they say that DNA is directly connected and trickled down into what's called the Bantu tribe. The Bantu tribe reaches all the way into what is called the Limba tribe, and tribes and other tribes in North Africa, in the Saharan Desert and West Africa. And guess what? They say that it is the main DNA that is inside the so-called African American, or who I call indigenous American, African American people of America. Understand that DNA in that place, that position, is where they say Yeshua is from. Understand, this is very, very key, because we know that our DNA goes all the way back to ancient Kemet, right? And just a decade or less ago, they were, or more, whatever it was, they were digging in Tennessee and Georgia, right? I live in Georgia. They were digging down in Tennessee and Georgia, and guess what they were finding? They were finding ancient Kemet under the ground. This is very important. They were finding ancient Kemet under the ground. They said that the anthropologists started to become sick because they could not believe the ancestry that they started to find inside of the ground. This is very, very key. It is important that you understand there's a reason why we are under a divine protection in America. And I'm not saying that, that the others are not under protection. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm telling you is that we have a specific divine assignment, and it starts with us accepting and understand our actual divine identity. We have to come out of hiding. We have to come out of the false identity of what they call race. Race is a trickle-down effect of a denomination of religions. Remember that black came from the Christian black codes. It was a trickle-down effect. They denominate religions. They denominate money. And they try to denominate us. And understand that that denomination and that identity is an identity that is death to your actual power and your actual divine identity. We have to begin to divorce the identities that were put upon us and begin to accept and understand exactly who we really are. Okay? This is very, very key. Yeshua, understand this. I'm going back again. Whether you think it's allegory, because I'm going all the way back to Thoth, but understand, whether you think this is allegory, if it's allegory, then what this means is your ancestors left you a specific blueprint. Please understand this. They showed you through this story that these are all the things your ancestors were doing before they fell from grace. And when I say fell from grace, what do I mean? When I say fell from grace, what I mean is that they stopped practicing the things that made them the highest level of themselves and the most activated level of themselves. Listen, when we talk about the foods that we are to eat and to not eat, when we talk about vibration, understand that we had 0-point technology in ancient times. This is why it does not make sense to tell us that that in anthropology, the only place that we show up is on one corner of the world. Yes, we were there too, but if we had 0-point technology, right? And our ancestors were in Atlantis, right? If our ancestors were in Atlantis, operating within Atlantis, which is where Kemet came from. Kemet was the trickle-down effect of Atlantis, right? So understand that if we were operating and had that level of technology, and understand that they are finding the old technology, not just under the ground in Tennessee, but decades ago, they found it in Colorado. They found it in Arizona. They were finding it in caves. They were finding everywhere they went. They were finding these. And understand that it also included indigenous Oriental cultures. It included Tartaria, which was still alive in the 1800s, which was a trickle-down effect of Rome. So I need us to understand it is absolutely key. Why is it key in this time? Listen, got to pay attention. Right now, there are, what the text tells us, the text told us that there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. Is that not happening right now? Are we not seeing the release of psychological warfare on social media everywhere? We don't know what's happening. We don't know whether it's distorted reality or whether it's actual reality. I want you to know that there are programs being unleashed in order to confuse and distort reality, right? And at the same time, there are real wars being fought. And people are fighting wars over these false identities that are connected. And listen, this is not me disrespecting anybody's religious belief, anybody's belief in their culture. I have no interest in that. But what I'm saying is people are dying over religious narratives, right? Because religion is powerful. It can either be used for good or it can be used to destroy. And this is why it's so important in this time for us to begin to reconnect to who we actually are. Okay, so Yeshua, understand something. Yeshua, if you believe that Yeshua is a historical figure, please understand this means, understand this, the math works like this. It took at least 1 million people to make you, right? It took at least 1 million people to make you. They said it was just hundreds of years ago where they're talking about that there was a migration due to a trade. Now, we know we were here. We know we were already in the Americas. We already know that we were throughout the diaspora, right? But understand that that the fulfillment of the prophecy of Deuteronomy 28, that's fine. Things of that nature happened. That was only a few hundred years ago. Okay. But understand something. We have to realize that these stories and these prophecies and these characters that have either been created or have been created upon, right? They're essentially about you and your ancestry. Please understand this. This is important. It's about you and your ancestry. Why is that important? Because everybody except us realizes that ancestry is the first to divine identity and spiritual activation. Do you realize that your body, according to scientists, your body holds 1.4 volts per cell? 1.4 volts per cell. They say it's 50 billion or 50 trillion cells in our body. Do you know what that means? That means that there are 70 trillion volts of power in your body. Please understand this. There's 70 trillion volts, which equals to 50 billion lightning bolts. That level of power and electromagnetic field power is inside of your body. And understand that it is connected to the melanin and the neuromelanin that is inside of you. Please understand that that is the reason why they wrote the story of Moses, where it says that Moses was on the mount and tried to get the children of Israel to talk to Yahweh. And it said that Yahweh began to talk to Moses in a storm, it was lightning and thunder, and all the people left. Do you want to know why that happened? Because when God shows you a mirror, it looks like electric power. You've got to know who you are. You have the ability to change timelines. You have the ability to shift the storms, whether they come or don't go. You got to understand this, and the reason why you got to understand this is because the people that are operating and trying to bring destruction to the people, period, of all races, understand that they are using technology that outside of the body because they don't have what you have. But if you don't know who you are, you can't combat these efforts to try to bring destruction to your land, to your people, to the people around you, to the people you designed and purposed to protect. Understand this is very, very key and important. Pay attention to this. Yeshua means God's rescue, God's salvation, God saving. Hear me for a second. Religion taught you that only was encapsulated in the story where Yeshua dies on the cross. First of all, let me deal with that for a second. Religion focuses on the death of Jesus. But I'm going to tell you, if you pay attention, in divinity and spirituality, it is more of a focus on Yeshua's defeat of death. The fact that he was so powerful and that he had so much understanding. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about allegory or history. It don't matter whether or not it actually happened. We're talking about the fact that the lesson inside of the actual text is, it says that he had the keys to the kingdom, and he took the keys of Hades and the grave. Pay attention. That is a depiction. That is a depiction. It's showing you that Yeshua had gained the power, that he had received the knowledge and the understanding to supersede death. That's what that means. That means that he understood the herb, that he understood the cymatics. Do you understand that frequency was the #1 technology in antiquity? It was one of the top reasons why we had pyramids everywhere. We knew that we were able to manipulate sound, frequency, cymatics. We were able to utilize it. This is how they don't know to this day, but this is how we built the pyramids, because we used sound and cymatics to change the frequency or to change the density of an area, and it would make something that was very heavy light. We had this level of technology in antiquity. And understand listen, that is the whole point of Jesus walking on water. Pay attention to this. This is important. They hid all of our ancient technology and spiritual science inside of this one story. And listen, it turned you off because they hired these religious leaders. And I'm not speaking against, because I know some of them doing the best they can with what they're working with. But they under this religious Roman doctrine. And what they did is that they hid the truth and the reality of our spiritual science and had us operating in rituals that gave us no power. And all we were doing is exchanging our energy for rituals over and over again. And it caused us to consistently and constantly be in a perpetual state of slavery. First, spiritually. Understand that slavery doesn't start with what's on your hands. Right? It doesn't start with what's on your feet. Slavery begins with what's in your spirit and what's in your mind. Right? So understand this, that it is time for us to unlock the mysteries of what these stories actually are. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The Bible is not a religious text. It is interdimensional. That means that the text cross between dimensions. It is an interdimensional, intergalactic. It crossed terrestrial territories. True story. So true story means that it is based on stories that had predated the Bible. Okay? with the with the constitution of the universal law. That's what the text is. What is it? Brittany, this is so true. Didn't understand this until we left the church building and pulled away. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. The Psalms. Absolutely. And what's so crazy is that the text, it tells you right in the text, Psalms 82:6, and Yeshua repeats it. Listen, he's doing all of these miracles. He's doing all of these miracles, operating in all these modalities, right? Operating in all these sacred spiritual sciences, and they're starting to call him the devil. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? Does it sound familiar that when you connect with your ancestry and when you realize that your ancestors are not dead, aren't they saying that you're talking to demons? Is that true or is that not true? Does it sound familiar? Yeshua has to tell them the devil cannot be divided against himself, right? So from all the way back then, it's depicting and it's showing and it's prophesying to you that when you reawaken, this system is going to try its best to press you back down into a position where you're powerless. Let me tell you something. Your spiritual ability, your spiritual identity is the foundation of everything in your life. It's the foundation of your psychological health. It's the foundation of your biological health. Understand that there is a correlation between your biology, your psychology, and your spirituality. Our ancestors did not separate them because they weren't separate. We understand they were all one thing. And that's why when you understand and you start to decode this text we call the Bible, and you start to realize that it reaches all the way back into ancient Kemet, and you realize that it is our ancient spiritual science designed to reawaken us, right? When you understand that, let me give some examples really quickly. Let me talk about the correlation of astrology into our biology, right? So understand that the way that the pineal gland, understand there's the pineal gland, there's the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the manager of all the functionalities all the functions in your body. But the pituitary gland is the manager of your circadian rhythm. Okay. Your circadian rhythm is determined by light and darkness. Light and darkness. So understand, this is how this works. The pineal gland is the sun of the body. This is why Yeshua said, when the eyes are lit, the whole body is lit. I'm about to break it down. Stay with me. It says, when the eyes are lit, the whole body is lit. People are confused. They don't understand. What does that mean? What that means is that when the sun shines into your eyes, that your pineal gland receives the frequency. And when it receives the frequency, it syncs you to the circadian rhythm. It syncs you into the actual frequency of the realm or the region that you're in. Okay? And then at that point, it releases the chemical or the oil, right? That is able to reproduce. We call it the Christos or the Christ oil. That oil travels all the way down to your sacrum, right? And understand, if you do not release that oil, and this is the exact oil that is used to bring new souls into this realm. I need you to understand how powerful this is. Because the sun is also responsible for souls, for souls entering into the realm. Why? Because when the sun speaks to your sun, it creates the vibration that releases and transmutes the blood into the oil that turns into the reproductive oil. Now understand, when it goes down to the sacrum, if you don't use it to bring a soul, it has the opportunity to travel back up. The 33 vertebrae. Where's that number coming from? 33. Who do you know that 33 died and rose again? The Christos, the Christ. So the oil goes down into the sacrum, and then it travels back up through the 33 vertebrae, representing the life of Christ. And then when it comes back into the realm, the cranium, it releases DMT, and this is where you get your supernatural power. Please understand how important this is, because they want you to eat food to make sure that doesn't happen. They want to release frequencies to make sure that doesn't happen. They want to create programs to make sure that what doesn't happen. They don't want you reproducing, and they do not want you operating in your divine power. Why? Because when you activate your divine power, you become the most dangerous weapon in your universe. This is why I say you are the Messiah people. Why do I say that? Because understand that when you are exercising, when you are operating in that level of power, okay? Understand this. When you are operating in that level of power, the universe knows your name. Okay, so let me explain this. How do I know that the universe knows your name? Here's what it says. The text says this. It says, Yeshua says, ask anything in my name. Now, here's what the religious community or the religious church taught you. The religious church taught you that when you pray, you need to pray in Jesus' name. But that's not what the text means. That's not what the text means. When you go and look up the meaning of the text, and when you look up the word name in Hebrew, right? Or in Greek, when you look up the word name, it means character and consciousness. I'm going to say it again. When you look up the word name, it does not mean to say Jesus or Yeshua's name. It means to act in the consciousness and the character of Yeshua. And when you turn on the consciousness and the character of Yeshua, you access his power. That's what the text means. That's what they're locking you out of. That's why they got you focusing on rituals. Listen, I'm not saying rituals are not important, because children have to learn rituals in order to get it into and get a lesson into their subconscious, a good lesson into their subconscious. I'm not demonizing rituals, but what I'm saying is that you got to graduate. You got to graduate from rituals. You got to get beyond that, because understand that you are the answer. I'm telling you that the reason why we've been having issues with finance as a community, listen, the reason why we've been having issues in our marriages, in our families, is because they secretly separated and segregated us from our divine, sacred, spiritual science and knowledge. When we reconnect to that, do you understand that you see the woman differently? You see the man differently, because understand, when you activate the God in you, you really start understanding I'm dealing with gods on the earth. Where does the text say this? The text says, be careful, because you never know when you are entertaining angels. Understand that. It's telling you a secret. It's saying that without you knowing it, when someone is operating in their God identity and God activation, they are operating at a level that they transition and ascend into a place that is beyond what we are taught, what we're looking at, our issues. Listen, notice this. Yeshua, let me show you something. When the text says, listen, the name Yeshua, which means rescue, which means salvation, here's what it means. The text tells you this on purpose. It says that there will be wars, there will be trouble that is coming. Stay with me. There will be trouble that is coming. It says, but it will not touch you. Why does it say that? It doesn't say that because you're religious and because you operate in rituals. It says that because you understand your rights. I'm going to tell you what I mean. You understand your rights. See, understand, God in the universe does not operate on religious systems and emotionalism. God operates on universal law. This is why, listen, we have a lot of the Moors, right, today. They're talking about activating your indigenous self and detaching, right, from the fiction of the corporation. Understand, before that becomes something that actually takes effect in your life, the first place you got to do that is in your divine identity, in your spirit. Understand that the only reason why the practical things work, in other words, the reason why your ID, your indigenous ID, the only reason why your indigenous ID is going to work is because your divine identity is activated. Do you see that there's some people, they walk around with that indigenous ID and they get things done, but then there's other people that got that indigenous ID and they still get arrested, they still get sued, they still get in trouble? That's because it's not something that you can do just for this. It's not about paperwork. It's not just something that's about you just doing something so that you can fight a system. No. Please understand this. Everything about us begins with our divine identity and our spiritual activation. Everything is rooted in that. Without that, you have nothing. Without that, nothing will work. When you activate, the universe knows your name. How do I know? Let's use some examples real quick. Yeshua shows up to a man that it says that he had to have schizophrenia, palsy, whatever it was, schizophrenia. And let me tell you what was so powerful about this story. Him and the disciples, his students, were crossing a Jordan or a river. They were crossing, actually, I think it was a pond or whatever, but they were crossing a body of water. And understand, this is powerful and this is spiritual. They were crossing a body of water and they were met with a storm. They were met with a storm while he was on the way to deal with a spiritual circumstance. Please understand this, ladies and gentlemen. Please understand this. That there is no contract that the corporation of the United States operates in, and that they do not do rituals first. Please understand this. That they operate in their spiritual science first. This is why he tells us, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God. Or it says, or if you look at another translation, it says through divine power. That's not hocus pocus. What that means is that the text is begging us, our ancestors through the text is begging us, please go back to your spiritual divine science. Please go back. Let me keep going real quick. So Yeshua goes across, and when he finds, first of all, he has to rebuke a storm. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, that is not fiction. This really happens. You have I just told you, 70 trillion volts of power is in your body. So please understand that with that much power, you have to realize that you have the ability to change the atmosphere and to change the electromagnetic field. But let me keep going. When he gets there, the spirits that is inside of the man automatically know who Yeshua is. Please understand this. Why does he know? Why do they know? It says the text calls them legion. They automatically know, and they say, have you come to torture us? Pay attention to this. Because Yeshua says, I do not come, in the end, he says, I do not come to make peace. I come to make judgment. That judgment is first spiritual, then it goes into the contractual. Okay? So the point is, understand, they knew who he was. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I need you to understand that there is finance laws, there are legalese, there are laws in the health field, there are laws in these different systems that are designed specifically to come against and to tear you down. And when I say that, I mean economically, I mean psychologically, I mean spiritually. In every realm, they want you to stay in a state where you can't do more than go to work, come back home, be frustrated. And understand, they do not want you to realize that if you just take a second and unlock your spiritual divine self, you will begin to remove all of the chains that have been built around you and your ancestors and your people. Those chains will begin to be removed at the point in which, why am I saying that? Because the text says this, real quick, and I'm about to close soon. The text says this. Pay attention, this is very important. The reason why we have to get connected, right? The reason why we have to get connected, and the reason why we have to to adjust our biological state, our psychological state, is because the conscious, God in the conscious realm, the creator has stored information for each one of us. The creator has stored revelation for each one of us, specifically about your life, specifically about your lineage, specifically about your business, specifically about your health. This is specifically about you. Understand, information has been stored in what they call the cloud. Pay attention to this. Information has been stored specifically for you. These are what the Bible calls mysteries or keys. Understand this, hear me. This is where Yeshua says that man does not live on bread alone, but every word. I'm about to break it down. Watch this. I'm about to break it down from the text. Watch this. People don't understand what that meant. That makes no sense. Why does he say man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that proceeded out of the mouth of God? I told you that the text is revealing that there's a connection between biology, psychology, and our spirituality. Watch this. Yeshua feeds the 5,000, and he multiplies bread to feed, it's actually 15,000, but he multiplies bread to feed the 5,000. What is this connected to? This is directly connected to the children of Israel in the wilderness. The children of Israel in the wilderness had to eat manna. They called it bread from heaven. Pay attention to what I'm telling you. They called it bread from heaven. But understand that that bread showed up first as dew. It showed up first as a liquid. Dew. Dew is what that showed up first. And then they called it manna from heaven. These two events are connected. Watch what I'm telling you. The reason why the text is showing you that is because it's pointing right back to your pineal gland. It's saying that the dew in the morning, right? The dew early in the morning. They say that at 3 for between the hours of 3 and 6 is the a.m. is the highest spiritual hours of the day. 3 and 6 a.m. It was very early in the morning that the dew dropped for them to have the manna called bread. When it says the manna called bread, or when Yeshua is multiplying the bread, that is the oil that is traveling down, turning into the substance. Understand, this substance, this dew that is released, if you use it to create, it is equal to creating bread, or another word, a child. Manna. In other words, manifesting an actual being. This dew has the ability to manifest a human or manifest a destiny. This is the bread of heaven. So understand something. Yeshua is telling you that man does not live on bread alone that you eat, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth. In other words, Yeshua is going back to the beginning. Yeshua is saying that, listen, there is the Christ consciousness is available to everybody that will tap in. And that Christ consciousness is the consciousness that has created everything we understand. Let me go scientific for you. The text says this. The text of Genesis says this. It says that God said, let there be light. But let's understand something. In the beginning, God is in the pure conscious realm. So God ain't speaking with his mouth. So that God said is actually a thought. And understand that that thought is an emission of a frequency. Pay attention to what I'm telling you. The first thing that it says that God did, it says God separated the light from the darkness. What is this? This is the crystallization of light to create matter. Okay? I'm not going to go too deep in this, but I'm literally tonight breaking down for you and helping you understand that this is the fractal frequency system. Psychology, biology, spirituality, right? I need you to understand that Yeshua is pointing you back to the beginning. The Bible admits that God called his son out of Egypt. That means, and I told you in the Gospel of the Holy 12, Yeshua was in the mystery schools of Kemet. Okay? So he learned all of the sacred spiritual sciences. He's telling you, go back and get the knowledge to unlock what belongs to you. And when you do that, let me tell you something. There is no crisis in the world that can stop you. There is no crisis. There is no crash, no economic crash. There is no war that can stop you. There is no cyber attack that can stop you. Listen to what I'm telling you. It is showing Yeshua consistently dealing with crisis. That's on purpose. Because what the text is showing you from our ancestors is saying, I need you to realize that when you become the fullness of yourself, you cannot be stopped by crisis, not even death. It means that you can decide when you're going to transition. That's the power we walk in. When we reconnect to who we really are. That is the dichotomy and the difference between the interpretation of the religious story of Jesus and the spiritual story of Yeshua. We need to understand. I got to tell you this one more thing. You need to understand. Listen, ladies and gentlemen. The religious interpretation has X'd out the power of the feminine, the divine feminine. It only gives you a few trinkles of a few women in the Bible that did a few important things. No. Listen, I said this earlier, but I'm going to say this more clearly now. Please understand that they hid the divine feminine in the text. The Holy Spirit, listen, God is not male nor female, but God holds the divine essence of the masculine and the feminine. How in the world do you think that God can create male and female? There is a masculine and feminine expression of God. The reason why this has to re-enter into our spirit It's because when you were operating in the interpretation of the religious, it disconnected you from your woman. It disconnected you from your man because it said that the man is superior. It said that the women, no. Listen, the text it says God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is called the helper or the paraclete, the same thing it called Eve. So I'm telling you tonight, it's time for us to reconnect to the authentic divine information. Together, we equal the fullness of God. Understand, we are not the fullness of God without our female. We are not the fullness of God if the female is not with them. We are not the fullness of God if we don't come together. How do we bring more gods into the earth? When we intercourse. I told you, biology, psychology, spirituality, every system God created, every system requires each one of those to come together. So you cannot, it doesn't mean you got to be married. I'm not saying you got to be, but listen, the highest level of functionality for us is when the divine feminine and the divine masculine come together. And when we come together, we're able to move mountains. This is what he said. He said, if you believe, which means no, if you know, you can tell this mountain be removed and it will come down. That is not figure of speech. That's what I'm trying to show you. Religion locked us out. They know how dangerous you are if you become the highest version of you. You will become unstoppable. The earth will protect you. There will not be storms against you. There will be storms for you. Okay? All right, family. Listen, I appreciate us. I told you I had to get this out. I want to shout out the Zapata family. They sold into us last week. I appreciate you. But I just want to listen, family. I'm telling you, I had to get this message out because it's imperative. Listen, we're in a time where we got to activate. More things are coming. But listen, if we activate and we reconnect and we realign, I'm telling you now that they're going to wonder what in the world is going on, that these plans are not working. It's because when we come together as one, we can move every mountain in this world. I promise you, because that's what our ancestors wanted us to understand. Listen, family, if you need any service from me, you can just go into my link, go into the link in the bio. You can get any service you need. If you are blessed, if you're blessed weekly by this and you want to sow for your business, for your family, for whatever, you can go directly to my link again. There's a link that you can sow. You can donate whatever you want to do, whatever your spirit leads you to do. I do this because I have an assignment to reawaken the indigenous people and the righteous people of the earth in this time. And I'm not the only one, but I'm one of the few that are chosen to do this work. And we together are going to move mountains. I love each and every one of you, Dynasty Tribe. I appreciate you. I want you to have an amazing, powerful week. Make sure you meditate. Make sure you pray. Make sure you fast, intermittent fasting. Make sure you start to focus on electrifying your body, decalcifying your pineal gland. Start looking into the things that are in your house because it's time to activate. I love y'all. And I'll see y'all next week, every Sunday, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. on Sundays. Every Sunday, I'm going to be right here. And it's going to be free on the Patreon, okay, if you missed it. I love y'all. Have a good night.